This is Can We Just Talk, the podcast and YouTube series where it doesn't matter if you're living under a rock. We'll fill you in on the past week's biggest, weirdest, and most impactful stories, headlines, and developments in a nice casual conversation. Set your volume and settle in, because coming to you from a random basement in New Jersey, this is Can We Just Talk. Episode 29. A little bit of a smaller crew today. We're testing some things out. I think it's going to be good. We've got the important people here. Let's just say that. Myself, Troy DiSavino, Jacob Berg, Chris Sakonis back in. Again, they're making about their 29th appearance here today. So we've got most of the crew. Guys, we have some exciting stories to get to, but first, how's everyone doing? Chris, we'll start with you. Richie's not here, so you're really flying solo. I know you usually kind of create your opinion based around what he says, but we'll have to roll with it.
Well, I mean, it really depends on how Jacob is. No, I'm kidding. I'm fine. Busy week of school and work and all that stuff, but I'm doing all right.
Winding down. What do you got?
Yes.
Like 2 weeks left? Almost done.
Yeah, 2 weeks and then exams, and then I'm done.
Well, there's your journalism, Chris. So what does an exam for a journalism major look like? I have no idea.
Well, because I'm double majoring in journalism and economics. So journalism classes are like final projects mainly, and then I'm taking this one class. It's about like how media and advertising interact, and that one has a final exam, but that's a pretty easy class. But the economics ones, they have like exams that you really got to study for, and even though I only take 2 of those classes out of 5, like they take up the bulk of my time. Journalism
exam is like mark which is a valid news source, and it's just a list. Fox News, CNN, what's the OTN? What is it? The crazy radical right one?
One American News Network.
One American News. That's it. Yes. Jacob, how are you?
Pretty good. Similar to my boy Chris over there. Stressful, grinding down at the end of the semester. On the other hand, though, I don't have really any finals. A lot of my classes.
And you're the accounting major. That doesn't really make any sense.
It might be grad school. I don't know if it's different in grad school. I definitely had more in undergrad, but like now it's like a lot of group projects and stuff. So that's all coming to a head, and of course behind where I should be, but we'll get there. We'll survive.
Love it. Well, Jacob, I know you usually start, but since there's only 3 of us here today, I'm bringing 2 stories to the table today. So I want to do a sandwich. You know, I don't want to have to talk too often in a row. So I'll start this one off if you're fine with it.
I'll allow it. All
right. Good. Well, this one hits home for you, Jacob. You lived here for a summer. I don't know if you saw the news about DC, but this is the second year in a row where there's conversation about statehood possibly being in play for Washington, DC. Democrats in the House voted on Thursday to make portions of Washington, DC the 51st U.S. state. This is obviously, there's a lot of people saying this isn't going to happen. It's an awful idea. There's some reasons on both sides for why you'd want this to happen. Obviously, the Democratic side, if DC becomes a state, it means you get congressional representation. Meaning you get more of a voice and more of a say in things that are passed. You can understand why a Republican side might not want that, as DC tends to be a more Democratic-focused population. So there's something to do with that possibly. But it's in a conversation for the second year in a row. Guys, I want to get your thoughts, first of all, on whether you're okay with the idea of DC being the 51st state. And I have a little bit of not a tidbit, but an opinion on why 51 just doesn't sit right with me.
I had a question just before we get into that.
Yeah.
And I apologize if I missed it. Did you say whether they would they be getting 2 senators through this, or would it be some sort of I don't know, some other way of going about that?
Yeah, so the district would be treated like a state for that purpose, and it gets 3 electoral college votes, and that's what it is right now, I believe. But if it becomes, I think it would get 2 congressional votes. Let me look into it. Let me read a little bit more about the topic. Again, this is a lot of like previous conversations taking place. There's a lot of strong belief this won't happen, possibly ever, but this is just the second year this is being in the conversation. So I'll look into that and I'll let you know.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I'd say definitely if there's Senate seats on the line, it's going to be something contested. You could see how close I think the Senate is basically evenly split right now. So obviously now is like the most contentious time to add Senate seats, especially for a city which one would think might lean towards the Democratic side. I would say, I don't know. I mean, I think it's crazy to think that, like, all right, people in DC shouldn't get to like vote for president. I don't know if anyone I hope nobody holds that opinion. I think everybody, no matter where you live, should get a vote for president. In fact, I'm even more for popular vote than using the whole electoral system. But I think that it might be a little bit much to introduce a new state at this point. And I'm thinking, my thoughts are like, I mean, yes, they should have a vote, but maybe like you just lump them in with like Virginia or with like Maryland, and they just kind of count as part of that state for relevant purposes.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I would think if they're like a state, like a full-blown state, they would have to get 2 Senate seats and a member of the House of Representatives, because if you're under a certain threshold, I can't remember what it is, but I think DC would be just under it, like 800,000 residents. You do get 1 member of the House that represents the entire district. So basically, yeah, that would be 3 extra votes in the Electoral College and 2 extra senators. The whole idea that people who live in DC, which is one of America's most important cities, not that that matters, but that they don't have a vote for Congress, or, well, they do have for president, but they don't have for Congress. They don't have for the Senate. They don't have it for so many important parts of the government. I just don't think that's right. And I think, a lot of the opposition to it is politically motivated. So I think that's really the real thing here. It's not because of some way to quote unquote honor the Constitution about how the founding fathers didn't intend for DC to be a state. I don't think that's a good faith argument.
And go ahead,
I
Jacob.
was just gonna say, I mean, to that argument, I was gonna agree with you, Chris. Like, I'm thinking they probably didn't even mean for it to be a city. They just were like, all right, well, everybody who's involved in government will just live in DC, and there really won't be anybody else who lives there, and then we won't have to worry about voting because all these people already work in the government. So maybe that was some sort of logic there. And
if it is passed, the bill would give DC the standard 2 senators and 1 voting representative in the House. Again, I think it's a major reason there's a lot of pushback on the Republican side is because they have a strong understanding if this were to be put in place, that's pretty much giving it's giving a lot more power to the Democrats, especially with how tight it is right now in the Senate and the House. It would give a little bit more of a sway to the Democratic side. Hence why the Democrats are the one proposing this bill and Republicans are the one opposing this bill. So it always comes down to, who wants more power in the government. So I'm going to tell you why I am not a fan. And this has nothing to do with politics at all. I just don't like the number 51. I think it is such a weird random number to be like, right now we said a pretty perfect number, 50 states. It just sounds beautiful. If DC were to become a state, and you asked me how many states do we have, I would just automatically say 50. I wouldn't think 51. If we get to 51, we need at least 52. We can't be on an odd number like that. So if DC becomes a state, you better be making Puerto Rico a state with it as well, because I do not want 51 states in this country. That is just such a random odd number, and I hate it so much. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the easy solution to that is to compensate for the addition of DC by merging 2 of the deadweight states that don't really, carry their own water. Like, for instance, there's no need for there to be 2 Dakotas.
That's what I was going to say.
Or 2 Carolinas for that matter.
Well, yes, Carolina has a little bit more of a population, I think. And there's some major cities in both.
But is there any inherent reason why there has to be 2 of them?
How about this? Why is there a normal Virginia and then there's a West Virginia? Why don't you just put it together? And then when someone asks what part of Virginia you're from, you can say, oh, I'm from West Virginia. Normal, similar how if you ask someone from New Jersey, where are you from, what part of the state, you say North Jersey. Why do people from West Virginia need their own state to tell people where they're from? I don't get it.
Exactly. And in John Denver's hit song, he wasn't actually referring to the state West Virginia. He was referring to the western part of Virginia.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a pretty big snub to the West Virginians.
Do the people from West Virginia know that? Because I think they love that song.
I mean, I
Clearly
imagine
not,
they still
because-
like it.
I
Clearly
didn't know
not,
that.
because that's like the official song of the West Virginia football team. They play at the end of their wins whenever they
I don't
come.
know. Someone's got to break the news to them. I don't think they're going to take that too kindly. I think if they heard that, they'd probably be like, all right, we can see. Let's just be one state at this point. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I feel strongly that there's a lot of people in. I think if DC were to become a state today, it would have the highest GDP per capita in the country. So obviously there's a lot of people there. They're doing a lot of stuff. So it makes sense. On the other hand, there's states that have very little amount of people, and the GDP coming from those states is pretty low. I mean, you look at like Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. Again, it's a small land size, so that's why it's like, well, this is like a city. How are we going to make a city a state? But I mean, it does a lot for the country, and it is the nation's capital. It's weird. So then you ask the question: if it becomes a state, is there a city inside of the state? I don't know how that would work because it's not very big. What's the capital of Washington, D.C., the state? You know what I mean? It's weird.
So many logistical problems.
And then on top of that, you say, did Washington, D.C. become a state faster than the Washington football team named their team? Because they're slow to that too. And I don't know. I think it would be really crazy. And then it's another one of those cases where you have sports teams that don't actually even play inside their state. So then Virginia is like the New Jersey, where they just have all the teams that play separately. But I don't know.
They actually play in Maryland, but
football team? They play in, I thought they play. Oh, you're right. They do play in Maryland.
Landover, Maryland, home of FedEx Field.
Does any team from DC play in Virginia?
No. The Nationals, Capitals, Wizards, and DC United all play in the city.
Oh, really? They do? In city limits?
Yes. Yep.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've wanted to see some games played at Washington at the Nationals Park, but I heard it's not the easiest to get to. So
yeah, it isn't the easiest to get to. I think I went to see a game. I think we just went once. Yeah, I went to one game for Nationals, and I went to one game in the soccer arena. It definitely is a little bit of a walk, even from the closest spot on the subway.
Washington has a soccer team?
Yeah.
DC United.
That's a team? Really?
One of the founding members of MLS.
I'm not even joking. Like, I feel like I would recognize a team completely. I've never heard that team. Like, I heard a lot about like
3 MLS Cups.
Really? Huh. Look at that. Yep. Well, didn't know. But, I again, my takeaway is I don't like the number 51. I need a solid number if it's going to represent the entire state count for.
I'd say the DC residents should just vote on whether they want to join Virginia or Maryland, and then just go from there.
What's the better option there, Maryland or Virginia?
I don't know. I think they would probably vote Maryland, but who knows?
How does Virginia typically vote? Is Virginia typically a blue state?
I think they used to be a red state, but now they're kind of even.
Same thing with Maryland?
I don't know about Maryland.
Maryland is solid blue, like New Jersey. Virginia it's been called a battleground state, but I don't think a Republican has won it since, I think, at least 2008, if not earlier. So at least at the presidential level, it's a blue state.
Interesting. So. I wonder where they prefer to go. I wonder if you asked like a DC, someone who lives in DC, if they'd want their own state, if they'd want to do that. I don't really know what it would change for them on their day-to-day life and their day-to-day basis. I don't think it would change much, but it's kind of strange to think that the nation's capital is somewhere that is not a state. And I'm surprised. I wonder when the first time this conversation started, because I've seen that this is the second year in a row that this has been brought up, but I've never seen what the earliest case of this being brought up was. I've been conscious that the conversation has been around Puerto Rico for a long time at this point, but I've never really heard too much about DC. But they do have a decent population. I could see it, but again, you got to figure out which state's getting the boot if that's the case. I mean, I feel like Texas would be fine with just becoming their own country at that point. They might just be like, "We'll leave. We'll take our own."
Get rid of Florida.
Florida's got some redeeming qualities. I don't want Florida gone. I don't want a passport to go to Florida.
All right, how about this? How about we keep South Florida and Orlando? We make them like their own like breakaway state, and then all of the crazy parts can just go and become their own.
That's a logistics nightmare. You have a country separating. Plus, Florida doesn't want that. They know that the nice part of Florida is South Florida. They don't want to lose that. That's going to be a bartering piece for them. I don't think they want to leave Florida. I think they're chilling. They think that they embody what America is, just wildness. But like, I think the reasonable thing would be either to merge Rhode Island with something because that is so small as it is, or to cut the boundary of West Virginia.
Rhode Island, Massachusetts.
Just put it together.
Nobody will be the wise.
Has anyone been to Rhode Island? Has anyone ever been there?
I've been there.
All right, Chris, you've been there. Of course.
Very nice state.
Is it really? It's like 2 feet. How big is it? On the map, it's minuscule.
It's pretty small. It's like, I think a real benchmark is like a county in Florida, Palm Beach County, which is where West Palm Beach, all these other places are. That one county is twice the size of Rhode Island.
All right.
Just to put into perspective how small Rhode Island is.
So here's the funny thing. If you brought it up today, let's make Rhode Island a state. No one's voting yes to that. They would never become a state by today's standards. They got in young. They got in early. Honestly, they're like the Arsenal of the European Soccer League. If we were having this discussion today, there's no way Rhode Island makes the cut.
Oh, right, Troy. I love it. Troy is bringing up soccer. That's the second time on this podcast. Write it down.
I mean, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Arsenal's this little club that hasn't done anything in years. Rhode Island's this little state that has no people.
Well,
no hate towards Rhode Island. I'm just saying today you're not becoming a state.
Well, here's the thing about Arsenal is like they're not even like a quote unquote little club. They're a club that spends a lot of money and just has little club results.
They're bad. They're
They're the New York Mets.
Listen, that's the funny thing because Arsenal was like, oh yeah, like we didn't even really want to do this, but we figured that all of our fans want us to play good teams. Like we're not even that good, but we figured like, oh yeah, we need to play more competition. So that would be Rhode Island's argument. Like, we just want to be a part, right?
By no means, listen, if you're from Rhode Island, by no means am I saying Rhode Island's a bad state. I'm just saying it's small. It's like comparable. I mean, DC I don't think it has more people. I think DC ranked, if it would become a state today, it'd be 49th in population. So I don't know where Rhode Island falls on that spectrum. I think it could be in there. I don't know. It could be in the bottom two, but it's really small. Like if it was today, Rhode Island wouldn't become a state. I'm sorry, Rhode Islanders. That's just a fact. So there's no hate. I'm just saying the big leagues, if we were to start it over today, you're probably not making it. We'll probably take DC over you. And that's no offense because there's a lot of states that would not make it over DC today if we did like a fantasy draft and restarted. I'm just saying there's probably some major cities in this country that would make it over you.
Fantasy draft, restart the whole American government system.
Listen,
like in FIFA, you like mess up all the teams and redraft everybody. Well, we're doing that with every county. We're just making new states. Everything's getting rethink.
What goes number one overall? What goes number one? Is it Cali?
What state or like what area?
State, yeah, state. I feel like it's got to be Cali, right?
I mean, big GDP. That's for sure.
It has to be Cali. It has to. First of all, land size.
Just like
it's
the
massive.
Bay Area.
It's massive. You got two major cities with LA and San Francisco. I mean, I think it has to take. I think, and then if you're talking about it from like a non-political or non-like business standpoint, just like living in California, you've got completely different atmospheres to live in. You've got the mountains, you've got the beaches, you've got the open land and prairie. Like I feel like you've got everything to choose from. It's got to go number one. The only reason I'd say maybe something else is New York City for New York State, because you do have some upstate New York, which is beautiful. You have the Adirondacks,
Buffalo.
Well, Buffalo's okay, but you've got New York City, and that's like the big piece. But then California's got San Francisco and LA. So I don't know if we're talking states getting drafted number one overall. Chris, what are you taking number one?
Well, I mean, that's tough. If you're looking at it from like overall, like if you're including like economics, business, all that stuff into it, I would probably agree with California.
Yeah.
If we're talking, it depends. You could shake it out in so many different categories. Like if we're talking like, say,
you got to start your dynasty. You got to start your dynasty. Who are you taking number one overall to build a team around?
I would probably say California. Although I think like in terms of where I would want to live, if like I didn't have to worry about getting a job or anything else, I mean, I would have to go with Hawaii.
Ooh, that's a sleeper. That's a sleeper.
It's
Ohio!
small. Oh no.
No, get out of here. That's your number one pick.
Win a.
You're kidding, right?
Maybe win a CFP title game before you start talking about how great Ohio is. All right.
You're kidding.
This is a total throwback to that question. I was like, would you take like $10 million right now to never leave the state of Ohio?
No.
10 million? That's it? That's all I get? Is 10 million?
$10 million? That's
no
it?
way. Get out of here. I don't want $10 million to live in Ohio for my entire life.
Wait,
never leave Ohio.
That's like your whole earning potential.
What are you going to do with those $10 million?
What am I going to do with it? I can only stay in Ohio.
What are you going to get? Cavalier season tickets courtside?
Honestly,
watch
Jacob,
go 25 and 58?
Honestly, I'm probably going to want to work to distract me from the fact that I live in Ohio my entire life. So please, like, I don't think I want that. That's not really the vibe I'm going for here.
It's not that different from New Jersey.
I know. I'm not saying it's that. Well, there are some major differences. But I'm
so
not.
Would you take $10 million to stay in New Jersey?
I don't know, because it's like I can never leave. I can never go anywhere. I can never visit any other part of the world. I don't know if it's worth it for 10 million. We're talking like $1 billion. That's different. That's money.
$1 billion is so much money.
That's $1 billion. I know, but bribe someone to break the
you're
rule
pretty much telling me I'm on like state arrest for my entire life. So that's tough.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But you have like double all the money you're gonna make in your life. You know, have double it.
I know, but I can't. Most of the fun things I'd want to do would be to travel the world and see things. I can't do that with that money.
So that's
only so much money can buy. I feel
like this question actually is more on like how much the person wants to travel, and less on the state.
It's not even.
Like, I think that for some people, there's like no state. There's like for $10 million, I could have my pick of states, and I wouldn't pick one.
Although
because I just want to be able to travel.
California's not bad if you had to pick it because it's massive. You've got a little bit of everything. You got a little bit of everything. Yeah.
So little like desert, little forest.
Like there's people who live in Northern California that go on vacation to Southern California. And that's like seeing a whole nother part of the country. I mean, think about it in perspective. That's like, you know, people who live in North Carolina, they go all the way down to Florida for vacation. It's not that different in geographical size. But I'm not that's a tough question. Like, I don't know what number it would be for someone to tell me I cannot ever leave that state my entire life. Because then it's like you're just limiting me completely. You know, it's almost like house arrest. Like how much are you willing to take for house arrest?
Well, but I will say this.
For your entire life.
Outside. You could go outside.
I can go outside that's great. You could let me outside.
If you pick Rhode Island, then you might not have that much space to roam.
There isn't a number in the world.
You can do like a lap around your house and that's it. But in other states,
Chris,
I'll say this: if I did have to take $10 million to stay in one state for the rest of my life, you could do a lot worse than New Jersey. Because New Jersey, not to the same extent as California, of course, but New Jersey does have a little bit of everything. You know, you've got mountains out west, you've got the Jersey Shore, you've got a little bit of everything. You've got a couple cities, some nicer than others, but you've got a couple cities. Like New Jersey does sort of have a little bit of everything. I mean, we also have edible bagels here, which I don't think Ohio or most other states could say that. So it has its benefits. I think I wouldn't be my first choice. And I say this as someone who is born and raised in New Jersey, but could do a lot worse if you had to be stuck in one state.
Ohio's top 10. Not Ohio. I take that back. New Jersey is top 10 for me. New Jersey's top 10. And Chris, for that reason, like you said, you know, there's things to do. There's a lot of different places to see inside of New Jersey. But you could do a lot worse. And I don't know where I put Ohio on that list. Ohio's not the bottom by any means, Jacob. But you could never pay me $10 million to stay in Ohio for my entire life. That's not happening. It is 100% not happening.
I think I'd take $10 million to live in like any state.
$10 million to live in any state?
Yep.
Any state?
Yeah.
Like Alabama. You're living in Alabama for $10 million your entire life.
It can't be that bad.
Oh, come on. Get out of here.
If I live in like an urban area, it can't be that bad.
Urban area. Oh my God. I spend 2 days in Mobile, Alabama like I did, and then you'll see why I think that's a ridiculous idea. At
No
least
way.
the one saving grace about Alabama is at least it's warm.
There you go.
Like,
See, look, this
I
is
was
what I'm
there in
talking
November
about,
and it was
Chris.
like 80
Look on the
degrees.
bright side.
There
No.
is it. Yeah,
No.
but that doesn't
No.
overrule all the other negatives. I would
What
not
are
go
you
back to
doing?
Alabama.
What do you do with your money in Alabama? What, you're just gonna have a nice house and a nice car, and that's it?
What am I gonna do with my money in any state?
Go to other
out
states.
to eat,
Go to other
and-
states.
and
That's
go to
what
the
you're gonna do.
movies and buy some things on the internet. My life doesn't change that much based on the state that I'm living.
This is coming from the guy who's already gone and visited Europe and seen the world. Like, get out of here! I don't want to hear that from you.
Yeah, he's
This
playing
is
with house
shocking.
money at this point.
You were telling me like you want to go on vacation to Germany this summer. Get out of here! This seems ridiculous.
I do still want to go, but take $10 million to not go.
It's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but it's not enough to be like put on state arrest for my entire life. And we're going in circles here. So listen, if you're content living in Alabama for your entire life for 10 million, maybe we'll put a GoFundMe together and see if we can get this tested out, because I doubt it. I really do. But transition.
$10 million. If we get a GoFundMe for $10 million, I'll narrow it down to the county. You can pick the county that I live in.
A Dark Sage 9117, appreciate the comment of nominating Wyoming. Never been there, but you do have Buffalo and Bison. I don't know. You're telling me not to tell you it's not a top 10 state. Listen, Dark Sage 9117, I can name 10 states that I'd probably put above Wyoming. Again, I've never been to Wyoming. It's probably beautiful. Just doesn't seem like my kind of vibe. No offense. There's 50 states to pick from. Being in the top 10 is tough. Top 20%. I don't know. We'll move away. Let's talk about a little bit something else about, we're talking that conversation about being limited to a certain area for life. Not on that size scale. LA Dodgers are doing something similar. Chris, do you want to fill us in on what's going on in LA?
Yeah, so the Dodgers and I did a little more reading. Also, the San Francisco Giants are doing something similar too. Starting next week, they're going to start phasing in a vaccinated-only section of their ballparks where fans can gather exclusively with people who are also fully vaccinated. They said they're going to start it off with limited capacity, and by early May, they're going to phase it into 100% capacity in those sections. Most ballparks in Major League Baseball, including the California teams, are operating at like 25-30% capacity already. So that would be an opportunity for vaccinated people. If you're in California and you want to go to a baseball game, you could pack shoulder to shoulder with people just like in the before times. So I thought it was pretty cool. Guys, what do you think about this?
Interesting. Do they have a section for the LA Dodgers for bandwagon fans to sit in one section and then the rest in another? Because I think that's what a lot of LA Dodger games are like at this point, but just out of curiosity.
Troy, I mean, did you see the Yankees fans throw baseballs on the field? I don't know if you get to have too much standing.
At least we're passionate. It's a good thing the Dodgers are good over the past few years, because there's a lot of times when the team wasn't so great that those fans were not very quiet. I'll give this to the Yankees. When the team is not good, they're vocal and loud about it. The Dodgers are kind of just like, oh, we'll sit back. We'll wait for them to be good, And then when they get good, they show up again. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like being a fan of something.
No, because Yankee fans get pissed off about it. They yell. Similar to Met fans. They get angry and they shout about it, and they'll be vocal towards their team.
That's just East Coast people.
Well, maybe that's the conversation we should be having. Yeah. But I think it's a good idea. I like the idea of having some normalcy at these baseball games and having as many fans there as possible in a safe way. I guess everyone's vaccinated in those sections, so why not? It seems kind of funny because it's like what we talked about before, like restaurants having smoking and non-smoking sections that we're like grouping them up like this. But if this helps get people in the stadium in a safe way, I'm all for it.
Yeah, with things that have to do with. Oh, sorry, Chris, you can go.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, with things that have to do with COVID, like it's always interesting to see. It's always an interesting conversation on, what should we limit people to do, and kind of this paternalistic idea. I think it's a really interesting thing, especially if the decision is that, all right, in LA, maybe not enough people have become vaccinated. Maybe their cases are high enough, or it's an urban area enough that there's still some high levels of risk. But I definitely think that, I think that that's not going to work at all ballparks in all states and all populations. I think, yeah, maybe in LA, I think their citizens and their fans will see it a little differently. But I don't know if I can see this being replicated across the MLB. So it'll be interesting to see if the MLB in general tries to make something like this happen.
Well, Jacob, I'll tell you why it won't be replicated across the MLB. It's because there's stadiums that are having way more fans there already, and they don't care if you're vaccinated. We talked a couple of weeks ago about the Rangers at 100% capacity. Like, there's certain states and teams that don't see a need for doing this at all, and they're fine with having 100% capacity for fans, whether or not you're vaccinated or not. So, as you mentioned, LA Dodgers, props to them. They are one of the few teams in the country that are willing to do something like this. You know, I think it's a lot of the more northern states and then major cities. You know, I think Los Angeles being one of them. It's nice that they're doing this for the first time. See how successful it is. And Chris, in the areas that are vaccinated, is 100% capacity in there? You said
they're starting it at limited capacity, just to sort of test it out. But they said by May they're going to expand it to full capacity, as long as nothing goes haywire. So it looks like they'll be at full capacity before like the stadium as a whole, which I thought was the interesting part of the story.
That's going to look funny on TV. It's going to be like one section is like super populated and then the rest is like spread out. It's honestly going back to a time where it's going to be not socially distant. Part of me is like, oh, it's going to kind of suck because it's like you're going to have people sitting right on top of you. And it makes me think back when, we're at school and we're at university and you'd go into a lecture hall and it's a 500-person lecture hall. And everyone knows the common courtesy that you leave a seat in between you and the person next to you so you don't have to sit right on top. And it just always sucks when it's like a full day or it's the beginning of the semester and everyone's right on top of each other. And slowly, throughout the semester, less and less people show up and you have some more room. But then finals week shows up again and then everyone comes back and it's like, oh, God damn it. I missed the time where there was no one next to me. So it'll be interesting to kind of transition out of this COVID time period where now we have to sit close to people again, which is going to suck. I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of like trying to, because I'm going to be fully vaccinated pretty soon. Like once I finish waiting for it to kick in, I'm going to try and hit up as many like sporting events while I can, while they're at limited capacity. Because like it's not going to be every day that I could drive to Citi Field and just find parking without any problem, or drive to the Barclays Center or Prudential Center or anywhere really. Like that was the one saving grace of having to call games in empty arenas. In the winter was I could park right in front of the rack and just walk right in without any problem. Like I am gonna miss that aspect of it, even though obviously I love it when there's a big loud crowd at a game.
It's a trade-off. I mean, again, it's just like the beauty of not having to have someone right on top of you. And the worst is like when there are open seats and someone still sits right on top of you. But that's not a COVID issue. That's just people being really shitty sometimes. But yeah, I'm going to try to get to some games before we get back to 100% capacity. I mean, I feel like baseball is one of the sports anyway that before you could usually get away with not having someone sit right on top of you. Usually go to a midseason game. I mean, well, here's a question for you guys. Are you guys the type of people where you need to sit where your ticket says you need to sit? Chris, I feel like you are. I feel like you sit in the seat that you bought.
Yes.
Oh, you suck.
How do I suck? How do I suck,
Chris?
Troy?
Oh man.
Well, first off, I don't buy tickets like unless I like where the section is.
Oh,
like you're
getting ripped off.
For instance, when I'm at Citi Field, I have a certain price range. I'm not going to break the bank for a June game against the Braves. I usually like to sit in like the upper decks behind home plate because you have a good view of the field. You can see the alignments and everything, and you have a good view of the strike zone. So I buy the tickets with that in mind. And I usually just stay there because it's like, you know what? I like this. I paid for it. I'm fine with it.
Want a life hack? The cheapest. Want a life hack?
Yeah.
Buy the cheapest ticket they're selling and then move to an open seat in the second inning, third inning. Find a seat that's open, wherever you want to sit. You paid $7 for a ticket. And now you're sitting the entire game in a spot that would have cost you $50. It's the best. I don't understand people who sit in the seat they bought. You got to buy the cheapest ticket and move to wherever you want. No one cares. No one cares.
I'm gonna take the middle position here. I'm gonna say that I'd still stay in the same section of like.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes,
so
that's
like,
I agree with that.
In the first inning, I'm gonna sit in my seat that has the number on it because people don't always come on time. I don't want to be like
Yes,
that guy.
yes.
Someone's like, I think you're sitting in my seat. Yeah, that's going to be super awkward social interaction. Don't want that. So I'm going to sit in my numbered seat for the first inning. Then after that, maybe I'll like move over, move up or down a row in the section that I'm in to like properly space between people.
That's fine. That's fine.
But I don't think I would switch sections and go to like a whole different, area of the park.
Listen, I'm not saying buy upper deck and then try to sit behind home plate. Because first of all, not possible, because at the lower level, they have people checking tickets. That's not what I'm saying. But if I'm sitting and it's like third inning and I'm sitting, say, down the third baseline, and I look over and there's like a bunch of open seats right behind home plate at the upper deck. Like the entire section's open. I'm going over there if I want to. I'm not saying go down to field level. I'm not saying get down behind home plate. But like if I see an open section where there's like no one over there, nice seats front row, I'm going. There's nothing stopping me. I'm not letting a little number on a paper ticket tell me where to sit. And that's a fact. I will wait, like Jacob said, I will wait a couple innings because obviously you don't want to have that weird interaction where someone's like, oh, you're sitting in my seat, move. I don't want that. I understand that, Chris. But I'm not letting a little piece of paper tell me that I can't have a nicer seat when it gets to the third inning and no one's shown up.
Yeah, well, the only problem with doing that in this case, we're talking about the Dodgers. You can't really do that at a Dodgers game because everyone shows up in the fourth inning anyway.
True. And they're gone by the fifth inning. So
maybe the sixth if it's a good game.
That's true. And
yeah.
Props to the Dodgers fans. They've shown up. They've bounced back. They have higher attendance than most teams in the country and in the league just because their fans are passionate. They don't have that East Coast anger when their team is not good. They went 30 years without winning a World Series. Get a little pissed off next time, Like if you spoke up,
maybe they're just good fans, Troy. Maybe they're just supportive of their
That's
team.
not a good fan. That's not a good fan. You got to be angry. You got to get angry. It's 30 years. Come on, 30
Troy,
years.
you would love soccer. Why
do they get? Well, they get angry. They get so angry they stop a bus from getting into the stadium and to quit.
They get so angry that they fight the players on the team. If you're Schalke in Germany.
Oh yes, I remember that.
I'm fine with it, but interesting story, Chris. Appreciate you bringing that to the table. Jacob, what do you have for us this week? I know you're a little bit out of order. You usually go first, but we'll have to
I know I'm all discombobulated here, but it did give us an opportunity because Chris gave me some foreshadowing earlier. So he's talking about New Jersey. We got really good bagels, like really, really good bagels. But do we have a deli that's worth $100 million? Well, believe it or not, the answer is yes, we do, or at least we did. So in Paulsboro, which is down by like past Cherry Hill, down by Philly, but it's on the New Jersey side. There is a deli, and they went public, and basically their ownership gets traded in like over-the-counter markets, so it's not quite like a normal listing.
It's like a pink sheet or pink slip, right?
Yeah. And they were valued at about $100 million, and it went up, I think, to about $150 million recently because they had an article put out on them. They got popular, almost similar to some of like the meme stocks with Dogecoin and stuff like that. People read an article, they say, this is stupid, but hey, I'll throw like $12 into it. What the heck? Now I can say that I own part of a deli and it's a fun like conversation starter or something among retail investors. So their valuation went up there because of some news and some popularity, some attention. Unfortunately, that also means that they got looked into by the SEC, and eventually it came to that they got delisted for irregularities. And so their stock, they I guess they have a period of time they have to wait now, and then they can apply again and try to be traded again. But unfortunately, the attention just didn't seem to do them well. SEC came down on them. I do have a couple prospective reasons for why a company might do this, but I'll get your
Well,
thoughts first,
Can,
guys.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did they do anything illegal? Or were they like secretly like a money laundering scheme set up, or like a front for a drug exchange? Like, was there anything sketchy going on here? Because it sounded really sketchy.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't like, they weren't like running guns or running drugs or money laundering.
It wasn't
like
that bad. All right. And
I mean, they're doing sketchy stuff, but not like borderline, like hugely criminal.
I saw like a fair comparison of how people have viewed this. If you remember the beginning of Wolf of Wall Street, where Jordan Belfort is trading penny stocks on those pink slips, it's like that type of investment, but it's valued at $110 million. So it's funny because a few months ago, the owner of this deli is like, holy crap, my deli is valued at $50 million. A few months later, it's valued at $100 million. It's like, holy crap, what is going on here? Of course, someone found out, and it's no fun anymore. Kind of sucks.
I just can't understand how you get to a point where a deli is valued at that amount. Like, there's no way the sandwiches are that good.
A good everything bagel goes a long way. It's New Jersey.
That's more of a 10 million valuation, in my opinion.
Also, it's like in the Camden area. It's not like a really like fancy, nice deli. It's like in
it's in Camden?
It's in Cherry Hill, Camden area, right? I'm right about that, right, Jacob?
It's just south of Cherry Hill.
Oh.
Isn't Camden just south of Cherry Hill?
Yeah, Camden's in there too, but Camden's like right next to Cherry Hill.
All right, it's not like the highest.
It's south. It's south of Camden, still like
Okay.
on the Delaware there.
All right, it's not like the hottest up and coming spot of New Jersey. It's not where $100 million. I mean, what restaurant should be valued at $100 million?
$13,000 worth of sales. It was something like that.
What, in a year or a month? I don't even know what.
I think it was last year with COVID.
Oh my god!
But so I was reading into like some of the reasons, like how does this happen? If you're a deli, why would you go public? That doesn't really make sense. But they looked at like some similar companies, some like companies, I guess some of like the ownership structure. One company that owned part of them owned parts of other companies as well, and some of I think the lawyer actually that took them public got in trouble for various things. But basically, I guess one person hypothesized that this is the goal of this would be to sell themselves. So for a company that's coming in that doesn't want to go public, instead of trying to do the whole for a company that's going in that wants to go public and doesn't want to do an IPO, doesn't want to have to deal with all that stuff that goes into it, they can just buy a company that's already public and basically inherit like their ticker and their stock price and everything there. So that's one of the reasons why a company might do this, is because somebody can just come and buy them and basically inherit their position on an exchange.
Yeah, it's just weird that I always just have a hard time I guess it's not understanding. I just think it's always weird whenever like a restaurant or food service place is publicly traded, especially a standalone place like this. It's not like it's like Brinker International. Like this is just like some guy's little corner deli in New Jersey. I just don't understand how it gets so far where it gets to $100 million valuation. How does that happen? How does it get that far?
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that they probably didn't even want that. They're just like, all right, we're going to stay at a pretty low number. We're just going to put in clean financial statements, not lie to anyone, basically have no investors. Like before they started getting talked about, basically nobody was trading their securities at all. And that was exactly what they wanted. They're just like, we want to be like clean, pristine business. So somebody comes in and buys us and takes our like reputation on the exchange. And this was actually probably not so great for them. I don't know what their like ownership structure was like, if the owner was able to like sell some shares now that they have such a higher price, but yeah, it probably wasn't optimal.
And now I know the benefit of being publicly shared is you're getting a little more working capital, correct? Because people are buying ownership in your company, right? But I just, I don't know. It just seems wrong. It just seems weird that it got to that point. And they must have had a crazy amount of working capital at one point because they were $100 million valuated company. Seems.
Yeah, they have a lot of different owners. So it's not, I don't know how much the company really is gaining from it, but they certainly had some opportunities there, and they had to go under a lot of expenses. So right, I said $13,000 was their revenue from being a deli, and it was something like $10,000 were their expenses, and they had really they only had $150 for wages, which was kind of suspicious. I don't know. Maybe it might be something with sole proprietor, if the owner was working behind the counter. It doesn't work like that, but what's up?
They're definitely laundering money in that deli. There's no way. There's no deli with 15 own. What do they have? A board of governors meeting every quarter?
Well, they do have a lot of owners.
I was going to say, are they all getting into a boardroom and saying, "Hey guys, the pastrami's not cutting it"?
Well, the crazy thing is that they had $300,000 worth of expenses for consulting and legal fees to basically upkeep them as a publicly traded company. You have to do certain disclosures, have certain regulations, and you need professionals to do that work. So the amount they paid to stay as publicly traded was so much bigger than any of their other expenses and any of their revenues. And yeah, I mean, there was also some kind of shady stuff going on because, right, they don't have a ton of money, so they had to pay these consultants and lawyers in shares of the company. And I think some of them was one of the companies was owned by the father of the other owner, so there's somewhat maybe related party transactions. Definitely some fishy stuff going on, but it wasn't gun running or anything like that, at least as of now.
I understand the story. I understand the reason why you become a publicly traded deli. For the reason that you're saying is because then the person who buys the company, they don't have to go through the hassle of becoming a publicly traded deli. I just don't understand why anyone would want a publicly traded deli. What is the point of having a publicly traded deli?
Well, you don't have to stay as a deli. You could just change. So say
so you buy a deli to do something else?
A Chinese tech company wants to come to America. They don't want to do an IPO. They just go and buy this deli and say, all right, well, we don't want to be doing deli stuff anymore.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Is that sketchy? Should that be allowed? Because someone could just make something, set it up for somebody, someone can acquire it, and then they're automatically a publicly traded company. That seems wrong. That doesn't seem right.
It doesn't seem right.
They can shift the entire product line. They can change everything. They don't have to be a deli to become a tech company.
There are disclosures that they have to make, but there probably isn't anything that's stopping them from doing it. They have to say to the shareholders, hey, we used to be a deli and now we sell computers. They have to tell people that. But there's nothing.
But what is the shareholder going to do?
Making that. I don't know. I don't know.
If I bought into this company because I thought, yes, they're everything bagel with bacon, egg, and cheese, phenomenal. I want to be a part owner in this. And then one day they're like, psych, we're switching over. We're making HDMI cables produced in China. What am I going to do if they tell me this? I'm going to be pissed off.
See, that's the problem, Troy, is that nobody owned them. They had this valuation, but nobody really, no retail investors, nobody was really trading their stock. Nobody was really interested in their stock at all. So nobody owned them. So it wasn't an issue. They didn't have to be the shareholders. Yeah. What do the shareholders think of our deli? It was basically, me and these other guys own almost all of it. And we kind of upkeep this price and valuation. And that's why it was kind of a bad thing for them to actually get popular and have people start trading.
It's true. Chris, you look pissed off about this. You don't seem too happy about this story. You're pissed off.
I don't like that I don't like that they're manipulating the system. Delis are supposed to be, honest, down to earth family businesses, and they're just junking that, and it makes me sad.
Well, it seems like it wasn't the deli owners that did this. It seems like it was people who got caught up with doing the same thing that they did with Dogecoin and that kind of stuff, that they're just all right, let's do it to a deli this time. Let's prove that we have a lot of power. It continues. It continues. It's strange.
Yeah. I was going to say, the other thing that bothers me is now I'm really hungry for a sub. and it's way too late at night to go to a deli and get one. So
Well, I was gonna say we should go. I want to go to the formerly $100 million deli. It's not that far. Like we should go try it.
This has to be like a tourist attraction for the next couple of weeks. Like people,
I mean, it has to.
It's going to go away, and people aren't going to care about it in a couple of weeks from now. So they got to capitalize on this. They got to like put signs up being like, "We're the most valuable deli in the world. Come try, our bacon, egg, and cheese or something." They got to take advantage of this now. It's good publicity. Obviously, there's some ramifications that were involved, but pretty wild. Almost as wild as this next story I want to get to as we wrap up the show here tonight. But apparently, Lego larceny is through the roof right now in Europe. People are stealing Legos at a high rate. There's rumors that there is a extremely high profiting market on the black market for these Legos that people are selling. So there's a lot of thievery going on. Last month, a man in Oregon was actually arrested. And this is taking place over in Europe and in the United States, but I think a lot of these are selling in the Europe for a higher price. But last month, a man in Oregon was arrested after a local police suspected he stole over $7,500 worth of Lego toy sets. First of all, I want to say that is a lot of Legos to carry out. It's not like you're grabbing like a diamond necklace, stuffing it in your pocket. Like these are big boxes. These are really big boxes. I don't understand how you steal that many Legos. It must have, gone in waves. But there's strong belief because of how high and of return on investment there are on some of these Lego sets. Like, for example, there was a set that sold for like $80 back in like 2007. It now is selling for like upwards of $3,500. So there's a huge crazy.
So they're keeping them as sets? Like when you told me that story, I thought like what they would do is like find all the Legos and then like sell the pieces individually or something like that.
No. The sets.
Okay, so they're keeping it together.
Yes. It's like almost like action figures. You keep them in the box, and that's where they're worth more when you keep them in the box and you sell them. So like there was a French cafe set that if you bought in 2007, it was like $80. Today, an unopened one is like $3,500 alone. But like I said, there's for some reason a lot of Lego thievery going on right now across the world, especially in Europe. And there's reasons to believe officials think that there is a volatile black market for Legos, which is kind of nuts. It's a crazy thing. You think about the people who are buying Legos. At this point, the people who are buying on the black market aren't buying it because they like Legos. They're buying it because they see value in Legos. Kind of like Beanie Babies of the 90s, baseball cards, that kind of stuff. But Legos right now, they're blowing up. They're blowing up.
I mean, I just find that kind of strange, and I don't want to say sketchy, but it's a bit weird that all of a sudden this black market has emerged for Legos. Like I can't imagine wanting to spend $3,500 on a Lego anything. Even when I was a kid and I liked Legos, I wouldn't do that. I just find that very unusual. But hey, it's like January we had GameStop and AMC, and now we've got Legos. So
yeah,
this is. Go ahead, Jacob.
It's just crazy. I mean, to add on to what Chris is saying, Lego, if you're listening, I do have one request. I need the Allianz Arena in Legos. I don't know why we don't have that yet. I need that. Other than that, you're right. I had never really thought of buying very many Legos in general. I'm not sure how it got to such a crazy value because, right, most of the Legos are pretty similar. Which is like why I was thinking like, oh, actually, like you could like steal the Legos and then sell them as like different kits and different like, oh, I want like a couple different bricks. But if you're gonna just sell them as complete sets, then like
they got to be unopened.
I don't understand how it's like, oh yeah, I can get it on the black market, and like, oh, why I wouldn't buy it in the store, and why there's like so much value going on around these.
So they have to be unopened because then they become collector items. But apparently there's a lot of people who are just wealthy collectors and they're missing a few different sets to complete their collection. I don't know if you're familiar, but I was a big Lego fan as a kid. But when you sell Legos, they come in like sets isn't the right word, but they would release like topics. So like there'd be like Lego City in 2007, where they'd have a cafe corner and a town square and like, like a library. So you buy the complete group of them, so you could like collect them all almost, and you have a full town. So apparently, there's certain sets that a lot of people didn't get back when they first came out. Those are the ones that are rare now. A lot of these collectors don't have them. They're willing to pay a lot of money for them. The reason I guess they're not selling on eBay is because apparently they're not being acquired in a legal way. People are stealing them, so you can't go on eBay and sell a stolen item, I guess. I guess since it has a QR code, not a QR code, it has a barcode, they could tell if it was stolen maybe. Apparently, Lego sales are up 100% over the past year with the pandemic as well. As I remember, before the pandemic started, Lego sales were actually down a lot. You know, as any other toy company, like a physical toy, like they were down in sales compared because video games are taking over and that kind of stuff. But now it's once again, as we've seen with like Pokemon over the past few months, it's not kids buying Pokemon cards. It's adults trying to sell them for a higher value. It's just the next craze. This one isn't as much of a craze. This is like collectors who want to complete their sets and are willing to pay a lot of money for it at this point, whether or not they were obtained legally. It's weird.
Well, I would hope that there aren't any illegal activities going on related to Lego sales. That of all the things to go to prison for, I would hope that that would probably have to be the dumbest one. I mean, people shouldn't be going to the lengths of, I don't know, say washing their money in a Camden County deli that's then put on the stock market, foiling the entire scheme. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Legos are desirable. You ever played with Legos, Chris? Were you a Lego kid at all?
When I was a little kid, yes.
I was gonna say, I feel like this might be right up your alley, Chris.
I mean, not so much anymore. I had a couple ones. You build a couple things. I remember when I was like 8, I built an airplane one that I really liked. Not kidding.
Oh my god! 57 minutes in, finally we get airplanes from Chris.
It's still in my room somewhere if I dig it up. But I went through that phase. Grew out of it. Still like airplanes though.
So you outgrew Legos, but not airplanes. Airplanes lives on. Interesting. I think you're missing out.
Outgrow. It's one of the great innovations in human history.
So were Legos. Legos were pretty fun. They connect.
Unless you step on them, then they're not fun.
Well, stepping on an airplane wouldn't be very fun either, Chris. It wouldn't be the most enjoyable thing. Most things aren't comfortable to step on, but you figure out how to get around them. You use your eyes to make sure you don't step on them. That's what I would do. I've never stepped on too many. Jacob, did you play with Legos as a kid? I feel like you didn't. You were just outside running around, probably.
I probably had a couple. I think if I recall right, I had like some like Harry Potter ones. Even though I didn't really read Harry Potter, I don't know how they came to fruition, but I think I had a couple like Lego sets. I wasn't like crazy into that kind of stuff, but
as someone who had older brothers who had a lot of Legos before me, and then I had my own on top of it, I had a lot of Legos, like a lot of Legos. And to a point where we just had like drawers of like random bricks so you could build whatever you wanted. That's the beauty of Legos. If you get to that point where you're no longer constrained by the fact that you have to use what the sets give you, but you can do it whatever you want with it. That's when you really
that's what I was going to say. Like, I feel like that's like 10 times cooler when you see these people make crazy things like out of Legos. Like, that's so cool. And like, I've been to Legoland in Florida and they have like different exhibits. They have like one specific area. They have rides and it's like an amusement park, but they have like a specific area where they have like all these like public attractions. Like they have like the Eiffel Tower and like the Great Wall of China, like just like all these different things built out of Legos. And that's so cool. And like, that's why I'm like, oh, it's like there really that much interest in like some of these just collector's items. Like, I feel like the coolest part of Legos is the custom build stuff that you're like, wow, someone put a ton of time and like artistic power into this.
Jacob, it's like anything. It's like art. It's not about like the fun aspect of art that people are. It's about the rarity. It's about the value that comes with it. Sometimes the natural beauty, but at the end of the day, if someone can make money on this and they can invest because they can complete a set and maybe in 30 years from now it's worth a lot more to people who like had a strong passion for playing with Legos as a kid, there's a price tag on everything. I think that's why a lot of people collect. But Chris, I'm telling you, man, and Jacob, you too, you missed out on some Lego fun. I'm looking at Legos next to where I'm sitting right now, from
You better
from,
keep those, Troy. In like
well, they're
30
not in the
years, you
box.
could
They're
sell
not in the
those.
box. They're not in the box
Ah.
anymore. So they lost their value, unfortunately. I mean,
Oh,
what kid's
okay.
going to keep them in the box? That's why they're worth so much now. Because when you get a Lego, what kid's going to keep it in the box? You take it out
But
and
like,
play with it.
why do the collectors care? Are the collectors going to keep it in the box too?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It's like
So they
baseball
just like,
cards, pristine
oh, I have
condition.
like, no, it's not like baseball cards. You don't build baseball cards.
No, but okay, it's more like action figures. People would buy like action figures and keep them in the box.
Oh, okay. I still think that's silly though.
Well, I do too, but nonetheless, it's worth money for some reason. So
I
listen,
guess it is.
there's a price tag on everything. What can we say? It's an interesting thing to get around to, and Legos take the next wave. But episode 29 in the books. We talked to airplanes, we talked soccer, we crossed off the checklist for Chris once again this week. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Can We Just Talk? Episode 29 in the books. Keep tuned, keep it locked. We got some more content coming out this week with Polar FC, Polar Music. So stay tuned with what's coming out.